Hi, everybody. Welcome to our room. My name is Abby Feerrar. I'm really excited to be here. I'm one of the co-owners of Bald Birds Brewing Company. We are a brewery that's based out of Audubon, PA, and we also have a location in Manayunk, right on Main Street. I am really excited to be part of this Girls Night In workshop. I'd like to start by just giving a bit of background information on Bald Birds. We have been in business for almost 2 years now. We started writing our business plan back in the fall of 2016. My husband and I together left corporate careers to start this brewery. We took about 1.5 years to get our brewery up and running. We opened our doors in September of 2018 and then opened our Manayunk location in August of last year. So we've been moving pretty quickly to grow our business, and it's something that we are so passionate about, and we love to share with this great community that we have in Audubon and in Manayunk. A little bit about our brand and our name and where we come from. If you see our logo behind me, this guy looks just like my husband. So part of the reason that we're called the Bald Birds is because of him, but also I have alopecia. So from time to time I lose all of my hair as well. I'm in a growth phase, as you can tell, but sometimes, and at the time that we were writing our business plan for this brewery, I was just as bald as he is. So we kind of used that to our advantage to help create a brand that's built around our personalities and who we are, and we became the Bald Birds. So that's a little bit about our story, and you can read more about that on our website or on any of our social media, but I'd love to take you all on a tour of the brewery. So what I'm going to do is switch over to another camera here, and I am going to take you on a little walking tour of Bald Birds. Just give me 1 second here. And Shelly, if you can unmute my other device, then I can get everybody a little tour here. So this is our tap room. This is the space that we built here in Audubon. We're currently doing curbside delivery. So we have a few of our awesome bartenders here doing curbside takeout for folks who placed orders online. This is our tap room, which is usually full of awesome patrons at this time of day, but we're just happy to be getting our product out there still. So we have a lot of ordering going on, and a lot of orders being filled curbside, and then also some delivery as well. So I will take you back here into the brewing area. There's a lot going on back here, so we'll just start at the beginning where we start with brewing the beer. We start here in our milling area. This is where all of the grain goes into the mill. It's broken up, and when grain is broken up and malt is broken up in the brewing process, it allows the starches in the malt to be released, and then it's kind of creates almost like a tea effect. So like we put the malt into a giant kettle over here with a lot of water, and we boil it, and that creates like a steeping methodology for creating what we call the wort, which is the liquor that turns into beer. So malt and water are combined here in the mash tun, and it is brought to a high temperature to release some of the enzymes in the malt and start to release those sugars that will eventually be turned into alcohol in the brewing process. So that takes a few hours here, this mashing in process, which is what we call it. And then all of that wort, which is what is now like the liquor of the beer, that's taken through some piping here in our brew house and over to our brew kettle. So it's then boiled here for a couple hours, and the timing of the boiling and the temperature of the boil is what contributes to a lot of the flavor in the beer, a lot of the aroma. This is where hops are added, and those hops contribute a ton of flavor, a ton of aroma as well. And the different hops contribute different types of flavors. And that goes on for a couple hours again, and then the liquor that is generated by that process is rapidly cooled down and taken into a fermenting vessel. So these are our fermenters. We have 10 of them. These are 20 barrel fermenters. A barrel is the equivalent of 2 kegs that you would traditionally see in a bar or get for your home kegerator. And so we can brew up to 40 kegs worth of beer in one of these fermenters at any time. So the cooled down wort liquid is then put in these fermenters, and the yeast is added at this step, and then the yeast begins to convert the sugars in the malt to alcohol, and that's when it can officially be termed beer for the first time. So when those sugars start to convert, then it becomes, the alcohol content rises and it actually becomes the beer. So that can take anywhere from a couple days to a couple weeks before the beer would be ready for consumption. And we also leave the beer in these vessels for weeks at a time for conditioning. So once the fermentation process itself is completed, then you would like to condition the beer because it enhances flavors, it enhances the clarity of the beer, and it contributes to just overall better flavor profiles. Depending on the style of beer, the timing is different, but the process is the same across all styles. These that you're seeing here, these are called fooders, and these are oak fermentation vessels. So rather than the stainless steel, we also can do certain styles of beer in an oak fermentation vessel. So what that does is contribute flavors like smokiness, woodsiness, other things that you would associate with like almost winey terms. And we do a lot of sours in here, a lot of more wild styles of beer like saisons, using more wild yeast strains. And then that contributes a ton of different flavors compared to a stainless steel fermenting vessel. And then we also do a lot of barrel aging. So we've taken some of our darker beers and put them in these Buffalo Trace barrels. So when they come out of these barrels in October, then they will have a lot more depth of flavor and it'll be contributed by the barrels themselves. So they'll have a little bit of a bourbon whiskey tinge to them, which I know a lot of people really enjoy. And once the fermented beer comes out of the fermentation tanks, it goes into these bright tanks, we call them. And this is where more conditioning occurs and also where carbonation occurs. So as the yeast eats the sugar in the malt and creates the beer, then CO2 is released, and then we pipe CO2 back into the beer to create the carbonation that you're so familiar with. And once that is completed, then it comes right here to our canning line or our kegging line for packaging. So typically we put a lot of our beer in kegs because we would be selling a lot of it in our tap room and people would be drinking it by the pint. But currently we're doing a lot of canning. So this is our cooler here in the back, and normally it would be full of about 150 kegs, but today you can see it's full of pallets and pallets of cans that we've been sending out near and far to all of our wonderful customers who've been ordering to-go beer. So that is the process of brewing here with us. We also have a small experimental system where we can brew 2 kegs of beer at one time. So that's where we do a lot of our experimentation, our new batches. Before we do something on a large scale, we like to make sure that it's really going to be a home run and that our customers are going to enjoy it as much as we do. So we like to start there, and we do a lot of experimentation back there in our lab. And then we come out with the final product. So that's basically the gist of the brewing process here at Bald Birds. I would love to take you back now and sit down and talk a little bit about the styles of beer that we have right now. And then I'd be happy to answer any questions in the next moment or so. So I'm just going to get back here to my computer and switch back over, and then we will talk a little bit about some beers. Okay, we are back to a nice place to sit, and I just wanted to check in the chat box and see if anybody had any questions. I'd love to take a few in this interim before I start to crack a beer and talk about the beers themselves. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but otherwise I will start cracking a beer. And if you have one at home, please join me. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the styles of beer that we have right now. We have, at any given time, we typically have 12 taps available in the brewery. We reserve 3 to 5 of them for IPAs because those are a style that are really popular and that most people enjoy, and they move quickly through the tap room. We sell a lot of them, so we always try to keep a good rotation of those. Then we also just think about what's seasonal, what fruits are in season, what kind of sour beers would go well with fruits, or saisons would be nice with a fruit that might be seasonal. We have a blackberry sour coming out next week that's all using all locally grown blackberries. So we try to do at least 1 or 2 of those at any given time. And then we also try to venture into some more experimental stuff, like I mentioned before. So we have a very high like high octane imperial stout right now, which is typically kind of a colder weather beer, but we put it out now so that we could put it in those Buffalo Trace barrels and age it for the next 6 months and have something new in the fall. So just like to think ahead like that, and come up with a good rotation of beers to have on our tap list. So I'd like to talk right now about kind of the beers that we have that would most closely mirror something you might see in a typical bar. If you're not so much a craft beer drinker, we have things that still appeal to a wide variety of palates and variety of beer tasting preferences. So I'm going to start with our lightest beer on our scale right now, which we call Peach Exceeds Grasp. It is a wheat beer with mango and peach brewed into it. So it's a very light beer. It has a smell almost like a grassy wheat smell. If you go to a bar, you might see like a Blue Moon that they have on tap. It's a similar style of beer to that, like to the Hefeweizen and the wheat beer style. But it is, again, very light and refreshing. It's a low alcohol content, so you can drink a few. It's a great summer beer, and has lots of nice notes of peach and mango, like I said. So it is one that is very popular. Right now, we actually brewed a batch for a local restaurant, and they've been selling it as well. So we have been getting a lot of it out there, and it's really had good response from folks in this community for sure. Another beer that I'd like to talk about is called Big Bear. This is one of our flagship IPAs. So we have a few beers, very few, that we do repeat brews on. So most of the things that we get out there are kind of one-offs. We like to just always have something new on the tap list for folks when they come in. But then when we find something that people really like and keep asking for over and over again, then we know that it's a home run. So Big Bear is one of those. It's a 7.4% IPA. It's a New England style IPA, so it is a little hazier. It has notes of papaya and mango, and it has like a sweetness to it. It's always interesting when people come into the bar and they ask for recommendations, but say, I don't like IPAs. I know I don't like IPAs. And if I give someone a flight of beer most often and just recommend that they try an IPA in that flight of beer, nearly every time they're like, oh, I didn't know I liked IPAs because I really like that. So I think that people have certain preconceptions of what styles of beer taste like based on what they've tasted a long time ago or what they've tasted in another place. So even IPAs as a category, for example, has so many smaller variations within it. You have East Coast and West Coast IPAs. You have hoppier ones and much smoother ones. You have some that are super clear and some that are very hazy. You have milkshake IPAs that have a lot of lactose sugar in them. So there's a lot of different styles, even within each style category. We have a question here from Mary Kay, and she was wondering what hops are in the Big Bear. See, I have the list here because our brewer was kind enough to give me all of the information. So Big Bear is double dry hopped. So what that means is during the fermentation process, additional hops are added in to give more aroma, more flavor, and really add that hoppiness to, like, when you crack the can, you're going to smell it right away. And then as you taste it, it's going to be much of a more full hop sensation. So the hops in the Big Bear are Callista, Simcoe, and Cashmere. So there's notes of mango, lemon, tangerine, and even some berry within this one, which is honestly one of my favorites that our brewer Pat has ever brewed. This is just a really, really good, smooth, easy drinking beer. That's something that he has done a tremendous job of, is creating beers that are big and full of flavor while still being smooth and drinkable, even at higher alcohol contents, which sometimes they can get a little bitter or a little strong for folks. But really all of his beers are quite drinkable, and you can enjoy a few of them without even realizing that you are. So Big Bear you can always find. We pretty much always have it in cans and usually on tap as well. And that is one that we keep brewing over and over again. And it is, like I said, one of my favorites that we have ever brewed. And it also has a younger brother called the Little Bear, which is a smaller version of it. It's a lower alcohol content, and that one comes out in the spring and sometimes in the later summer. So we love that one as well. And then the final style that I wanted to talk about is our darker styles. So some people go into a bar and they think, that like they love a Guinness or they love a dark porter or a stout. And something that we have right now is called Light Brigade. And this is a 9.5% beer, but it drinks like a Guinness, which is only in the 5% range. So it is smooth and it is flavorful. It has notes of chocolate and coffee and those richer flavors that you think of when you think of a really dark beer, but it doesn't feel heavy on your palate, or it doesn't, you can actually drink a full one and not feel like you just ate a meal. So that is one that we're particularly excited about. And again, we put that in those whiskey barrels back there. So in the fall, we'll have another version of it that'll be going into bottles, which is a whole nother fun process that we get to participate in, which is coming up with like special releases and things like that. So we have another question from Andrea. How do we come up with our awesome beer names? So that is the least scientific part of the beer making process, because it pretty much comes down to whoever has the best idea at the time and makes us all laugh when we're kicking around beer names. It could be anything from something funny that our kids said to, we have a few that are named after birds, because that's a theme that we have running here. So we have some that are like the scientific name of a bird that we like. And it can be anything really could be a good beer name. And if you think about it that way, you find yourself saying things often and thinking, oh, that would be a really good beer name. So we do that a lot in our house. And we'll just have funny little interludes that end with good beer names. So that is our entirely unscientific process for naming our beers. So the final thing that I wanted to talk about, I'm not sure if it is currently in the chat or not, but I did provide and would like to make available to everyone something that we call the hop wheel. And it is just a tool that we like to give to our customers who are interested when they're at the brewery. And it tells the flavor profiles that are associated with different types of hops. So like I talked about in the Big Bear, it has Calistic, Simcoe, and Cashmere hops. And those hops each have a certain flavor profile. So some are citrusy, some are earthy, some are berry flavored, some are more like mossy almost. So there's an interesting map of hop flavors, and if anybody's interested, we'll figure out a way to add that. There's a PDF, and we'll figure out a way to add that in here if you're interested in that, or you can just Google the wheel of hops or hop flavor wheel. But that's something that I always like to let people know about, because it's something that I personally didn't even know, that each hop had such a unique flavor profile that it contributed to the beer, and the different amounts that you add impact it. And that's where the science really comes in as a brewer, is knowing how to balance those ingredients. And it's a matter of temperatures and duration of certain steps in the brewing process. So the amount of time that you boil something changes the whole entire flavor profile of a beer. The amount of time that you let it stay in a fermenter, or the amount of time that you let it condition, all of these things impact the beer. So even though you think there are only so many ways to make a beer, that's how some beers end up rising to the top with such competition among the craft beer segment right now. The ability for a brewer to be creative while still being a scientist, pretty much, that's where the real beauty of this comes, because each beer can be unique even in the midst of a ton of competition. So I think that we will put the wheel of hops in the thank you email, so everybody will get it if you'd like to look at that. And then and another question from Mary Kay: how did I learn about brewing? So my husband and I both came from corporate backgrounds. My husband was in banking, I was a consultant, and my husband worked at a bank that was part of the original Victory Brewing expansion. So he got to go and see their facility way back in 2005 or 2006. And that was something that really caught his attention, and he loved it. So it was always in the back of his mind. And then we just talked about it a lot, and it became something that we thought maybe we could do in the future. And then one day we just thought, like, the future is now. We're going to do this. And so we started learning everything we could. We homebrewed one time, the two of us, and realized that we are not brewers. So we went and found a great team of people who know exactly what they're doing and are so courageous and experimental in helping us build this business. So I have learned just by being here, by learning from the team that we assembled, by doing a ton of research on our own, but really my knowledge has been on the job training. So it's just been all, and it still continues to be a constant learning experience for me because we have this team in place that is always pushing the boundaries. So we are so proud of them and of everything that we've accomplished and what's coming in the future. So it's been a pretty cool journey so far, and we are really excited for it to continue. Oh, here's a question okay. Are there any special foods you think go with particular beers? So for instance, the mango peach beer, any wheat beer, I mean, everybody loves pizza and beer, right? So right now we're actually delivering pizzas with our beer currently. Like at this moment, there's 25 pizzas sitting on the tables out here. So that is always a combination that goes well. But we have that, like the mango wheat beer in particular, that's something that I would drink with anything you grill. I mean, there's a reason that barbecue is so popular with a lot of breweries who don't have food, who bring in barbecue trucks and things like that. That's always a good combination, especially with those lighter beers, because the flavors of the hops and the fruit really complements the kind of spicy sweet nature of barbecue and the smokiness of the meats. So that's my personal preference for that kind of a beer. Okay, and Anne would like to know how many are on our team. So we have a core team, and the coronavirus has impacted us, unfortunately, in the fact that we're not been able to keep every single member of our team here. But we have been able to keep our core team in place, and thankfully have been making enough money from to-go beer to continue to pay that core team their salaries, and that's something that we're very grateful for. So we have a brewer, an assistant brewer, myself and my husband, 4 bartenders who also function as distribution members and drivers and other things. So we have about 8 of us that are pretty much full-time. And then we also have, or had before, a rotating staff of 8 additional bartenders. So thankfully, most of our bartenders also have additional jobs. And so they are still working remotely and doing what they can do. And then we're supplementing them when we can, when we get enough infusion of revenue from our to-go beer to really give them a little boost. We're trying to do that as well. Okay, let's see. Audrey Hassey would like to know, what's your most favorite beer you've ever made and what fun collaborations do we have coming up? So my most favorite beer that we have ever made is a beer that we made once and will never make again, unfortunately, because of the process that it took and some other things, but it was called the 3D Wizard. So it was a kettle soured IPA, which is a very unique style and hard to find for a reason because it's hard to make. So we made that one time, and part of my favorite thing about that was I love sour beers, so I enjoyed it just for that reason, but also the can art that we had on that can was actually a 3-dimensional picture. So if you wore 3D glasses, you saw a wizard on the can kind of jumping out at you, which was one of my favorite things that we've ever done here. So that was pretty cool. What is in the future for Bald Birds? We have a lot of exciting things on the horizon. We are always looking for growth opportunities. So we are always just kind of out there thinking about what we can do next. We are going to try to collaborate with some local businesses in the future. We have a partner locally here and also who shares our space in Manayunk, and they are called Valerio Coffee Roasters. So they have their roastery here in Audubon right down the street from us, and we do a lot of collaborations with them on coffee and beer pairings and also coffee beers. So we have a coffee cream ale coming out using cold brew coffee from their roastery and combining that with one of our beers. So that's something that we're really excited. That's going to be out in the next month. And so that is something that we absolutely love to do, is collaborate with other local businesses and come up with fun things that are unique and that we can hopefully continue to do ongoing as much as possible. Luce would like to know, can you do parties at Bald Birds? Yes, when our doors are open and we're back to business, we love parties. So before all of this coronavirus situation happened, and we had 3 or 4 parties every weekend here, and our tap room, like you kind of saw as I walked you through it, is just one large open space. So we can rent out the entire space, or we just take our picnic tables. Our whole setup is very modular, so we move picnic tables into different quadrants. We can rope off different areas, and we have everything from rehearsal dinners to birthday parties to christening parties to graduation parties. We've had it all. So that's something that we really love, and we're happy that we're excited to get back to it when we are able to open our doors up again. And something else that we are thankful for is that we have a really large outdoor space. So we have a very big deck out in front of the brewery and then a huge parking lot. So we're hoping that when we get back to whether it's the yellow phase or the green phase or whatever phase we're going to enter into soon, that we'll be able to have customers here enjoying our beer together outside to start, and then hopefully getting people back into the tap room very soon. Abby Zwick would like to know, do you ship out of state? So short answer is no, but we hope to be very soon. Pennsylvania is really weird when it comes to shipping alcohol. So there are a lot of hoops to jump through and a lot of things to do to get your beer into people's hands out of state, but they are loosening it up given the current climate. So UPS just made a big deal with the Liquor Control Board, I guess, to be able to ship beer through UPS, which you couldn't do before. So UPS will now carry our beer, and we hope to be starting shipping definitely in state in the next 2 months, and then out of state as soon as we can after that. Again, thank you so much. I'll stick around here for another couple of minutes, and I think that we're gonna unmute everybody. If anybody wants to say goodbye or throw me a hey, we'll do that. And then I hope you all enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you soon.